with Gene Folks. Gene, thanks, man, again for being here today.
Oh, man, really happy being here.
Yeah, you have a great past as far as from the surface. You look at your business success and how much you've seen and the notoriety you've gotten for doing things right and doing it for a long time. Where did it all start?
For me, it started when I decided to go in the Air Force. So it was, I was impressed by someone that I had met at an air show. And, I was headed off to college, and I thought, man, this guy is sharp. He was just a little bit older than I was. And so I made the decision to join the Air Force. First one in my family to do that. I'm a Jamaican background. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And so it was having, from the touch point, which is what we try to do in our business today, from the minute I met my recruiter, and you hear a lot of horror stories about recruiters, but I had a really great recruiter. And so he really impacted me as far as the type of career that I want to build when I was in the Air Force. So I chose to be a recruiter. And I was advised not to do it. And I ended up recruiting for 4 years. Man, it was the toughest job I have ever done in my entire life. I'd never worked that hard before. And so, but it was so rewarding. And because I loved it so much, 18, 19-hour days, and I had a huge territory that I was responsible for, and I recruited a lot of people. I was number 2 in recruiting service, and I would recruit 6, 7, 800%. I mean, incredible numbers.
Wow. I
was too stupid to realize how hard I was working, but I loved it that much. And that's what really set me sort of on a path. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what really set my service level, my work ethic, and then my ability to serve people, and I've been doing that ever since.
Yeah, so you have, and I can see that definitely the discipline you learned there, and the hard work has made everything else a little easier, because it's kind of like swinging bats with 3 bats. When you get up to the plate, it's like, oh, you just got to swing 1. So you were swinging 3 bats in recruiting, and now you're like, all right, and you continued on a great trajectory in your career, and you've got a great reputation not only in business but also in your personal life. My question is, where did you go from there?
I was taking care of my grandfather, and so I made a decision. It was either continue my career, I'd been in 10 years at the time, or it was to take care of a family member. And so I decided to take care of my family member. And shortly after that, I wanted to continue that level of service, and sometimes that's not something you can define in of yourself. So I became a wealth manager, finished my undergrad, I got a degree in finance, and then I became a wealth manager. And so I worked with some of the notorious firms, actually well-respected firms, JP Morgan Chase, AIG. My last firm was Merrill Lynch. And then when you and I met, I was actually an independent firm.
Right.
So I was with one of the bigger houses. And so it ended up allowing me to do that. And I did that for about 15 years or so, really trying to provide advice to business owners and senior executives in that nature, and then making relationships like the one you and I made over the...
How did the financial crisis, how did that affect you? Because I know you took that very personally.
I did.
For your clients. So how did it affect you?
It's interesting because when you, and a lot of my friends got affected too, so it wasn't just me, but when you really build relationships with people, and when it's not about the money, and it's really, and you look at it from the standpoint of, it is about the impact that they're going to have in their lives. And then the way that I structured my practice was I tied myself to my clients the best way that I could. And there were decisions that were made. It was like one of the very first times as a financial advisor that you couldn't really, there's always a counter for an investment strategy. So you couldn't really counter that investment strategy. I took it hard because these people had become friends of mine. We had dinner together, but we had a relationship built. And you have to, when you have an ethical practice and you really have a strong relationship with your people, they were consoling me, saying, it's fine. We know you've done the best that you could do. We know you're fine. So let's just hunker down and make it happen. And that's really where they go from clients to almost like a family. And even to this day, I get advisors calling me saying, hey, your clients, they still don't want to let you go, because of how you talk to them. And I think just being honest with it, I did. I took it hard. You witnessed that. Yeah. I took it very hard.
No, it was
these are people's lives you're messing with. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It's serious.
But after the financial crisis, you were wealth manager for 15 years. Took that personally. Things did not go well for any of us that were in the financial services, any aspect. But then after that, an opportunity came up a few years later. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, it's interesting because here we were, when you talk about repurposing and actually trying to rebrand, here we were there was a tsunami of the financial crisis, right? And so I found myself in the positions of a lot of my clients where my firm had made some decisions and they had cut their workforce by 60 or 70%. And I was caught in that. And my main concern was, what about my people? What about my clients? More about me. So I ended up, there was this pop-up that came on my computer and said, hey, apply for the Apprentice. And I thought, well, why not? So I filled out an application. I sent it in. I didn't hear anything. I never met anybody. And they called me about 3 days before filming. It was like one day I was here, and the next minute I was gone. It was like I was gone for months. And so I flew out to, I guess, Mr. Trump and decision makers there had actually chose me to be one of the contestants on that program in a really difficult time in my life. And it was one of the best things that happened to me that led to me taking some of the advice that I've been giving other people, and how to just kind of hang in there and slug it out, which was really sort of parallel to the economy at the time. You know, my life was really parallel with the economy.
Right.
You know, we have to rebound and come back. You know, you just can't lay down and give up. And here this opportunity came out of the blue. They called me, and I was like, huh? Right? I was actually in a meeting, and they were calling me. They said, and my sister called me and said, hey, you know, some producer's calling you from NBC. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. So I called the
What's
guy.
the sales guy want? What are they selling?
Exactly, right. I said, what are you selling me? And so they said, hey, look, can you be on a plane in a few days? And I'm like, sure. And then, you know, next thing you know, they said, we'll send you an email, and then the email pops up and there's a plane ticket. And I fly out to California to do all the testing that you have to do to get on.
You were great on that show. I remember because that's when I reached out to you again after I used to record The Apprentice.
Right.
And I mean, watch it come on, because I think I didn't have a DVR at the time. I didn't have the TiVo. I was like, oh man, I got to make sure, because I love The Apprentice. And it was the first episode, season premiere, and I was like, wait a second. Who? That freaking Gene, folks. What is that man doing? And then you killed it, because you were the project manager on the very first project.
Yeah, where most of the guys lose.
Yeah,
In fact,
exactly.
almost historically, the guys lose the first one.
And especially, and it was like you had to design like an office space. So I was like, ooh, he is in trouble. There is no way.
Right.
And you actually crushed it. But we were like, man, that is a good looking office space. So that was great. And so you did The Apprentice. You went far in it. You didn't win, sadly.
Yeah.
But you did win. That's the good thing about what you did on that show. And you're kind of, it definitely, like you say, you're running parallel with the economy, but it reinvigorated you. You already had such a strong foundation, and you've really used that in a powerful way to just continue to do what you did beforehand.
Right.
And now roll it into so many projects that you're doing, one of those being Right at Home Rockwall.
Absolutely.
How did that come about?
Right. So, you know, one of the reasons why I did the project is because you and I were working on the project. So I decided, you know, I need about $5-6 million. I'm going to go ask, because I'm on the program, I'm going to ask Trump, and I'm going to say, you know, I take cash credit in personal checks, but I'm going to need a form of ID. I actually really asked him that question, right? To tell him I need $5-6 million, and I take cash credit or, you know, American Express, but I'm going to need ID from you. And so, you know, it really, when you're around.
That's why, and he goes, you're fired.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, right. Yeah, you got to get out of here. He told me I fall on my sword, right? But you know, it was really when you're around someone that is so engaged and so energetic and really, and they're almost, you know, when you're coming from the standpoint of trying to reinvent yourself or continue on with who you are, it really I began to really see that theme about the thread of service. How do I continue that service? And so I found that there was a huge need out there for people who wanted to care in their home. And because of what my family had gone through, my wife had taken care of her mom for 8.5 years. She passed, sadly, of ovarian cancer. I didn't know it existed. And so because of you and I's experience, and then because of that need, I decided we were going to do this. And at the end of The Apprentice, I had said that I'm a company of one, which I'm not now, but I said I'm a company of one. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to use some of the lessons that I have gotten, some of the advice that I have gotten. Actually, somebody has to give me advice. You know, I was giving Trump advice, he's giving me advice back. I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to build something that's going to be absolutely phenomenal. It's not going to be about the money. It's not going to be about my ego. It's going to be about why. Why do I do what I do? And that's a question that we have to constantly ask ourselves. And out of that was born Right at Home Rockwall.